I think it's fair to say that 2024 has been the worst year for AEW in total when it comes to attendance and ratings and everything in between. And a lot of that has to be with Tony Khan not being a good boss. That's why in this video we're going to be discussing what the problem is and how can we fix AEW going into 2025. Roll the intro. Before we begin, I do want to mention that I'm not one of those nerdy slobs that go online just talking shit about AEW because it's the cool thing to do, you know, it's the trend to talk shit about Tony Khan and all this other stuff. No, I'm not one of those tribalist fans. I love AEW and WWE equally, which means that when something is wrong with each company, I'm going to have to call it out because I truthfully believe that wrestling is better when both companies are at their A game. So if you think this video is going to be a big fuck you, Tony Khan, I hate you, oh, you like to snort and all this, and that's not what it is. This is clearly just a video of pure constructive criticism. The biggest thing that's going wrong with AEW right now is the fact that their creative is absolutely terrible. Most of their storylines are very boring if there is real storylines. It feels like each week Tony Khan just puts on banger matches because he likes banger matches. He thinks that everybody loves banger matches, which we do. But what's the point of a banger match if it has no story towards it? And Tony Khan is desperate when it comes to stories lately. This man can put on a good story to save his life. Everything is always so sloppy right now. It's like if you miss an episode of AEW, it's totally fine because it feels like none of that even mattered anyways. You can continue on for the next week, and if you can miss that one, that's totally fine because you'll still be caught up on what's going on because nothing ever moves. It stays in the same place, and that's the biggest issue. Tony Khan is Mr. Pay-Per-View in my honest opinion. I do think 9 times out of 10 AEW does not put on a bad pay-per-view. There's always bangers, but it's just that the weekly shows, everything building towards it just never makes sense. It's always all over the place. It's sloppy. There's no good creative. So what's the point of having a banger pay-per-view if nothing's gonna come out of it? You know what I mean? Like, we can't get proper dialogue where shows have a whole bunch of story and, you know, something to build towards these rivalries, and it never happens anymore. You don't always need banger matches. Like, look at Raw. I think Raw was the best Raw of 2024, honestly. And it was only like 30 minutes total of that whole show of wrestling. Most of it was just dialogue, which made it fine because everything that was going on was pure story. Everything was so interesting and you can get invested in because there's so much story going on. You got Seth and CMpunk. Then you had Sammy and Seth Rollins situation where you can understand from both sides. Then you had Drew later on in the night. You had that going on. Then you also had the Seth situation where everybody thinks that he attacked Jay. That's going on. And then the icing on top, the New Day situation. That show was such a banger because of all the stories that were going on. And it feels like Tony Khan has lost the concept of having good creative and having good storylines to make people interested in tuning in every week. That's why the ratings are so low. It's like, I mean, I could miss this show and I'll be totally caught up next week. So what's the point of me watching? I'm just going to watch the pay-per-view because it's going to be a banger pay-per-view. And then I could go on wait until the next pay-per-view because nothing has substance. Nothing drives you to want to watch AEW Dynamite every week. And that has been the problem. Tony Khan is becoming his worst enemy, which, you know, his worst enemy is Vince McMahon. And he's becoming that, minus all the SA allegations. As a creative standpoint, he's becoming Vince McMahon, and that is not a good thing. Vince never listened to anybody. Everything on TV was just so all over the place that nobody cared about. And Tony is coming down that situation where he just cares about the money. He's looking at the deals and like, all right, we got our deals. All right, so let's just throw on whatever. And, you know, the fans will be okay with it. And it's like, it's not. and then you want to go online and pretend like everything is A-okay. I would rather you and the rest of the wrestlers who like to go online and, interact with fans and be honest when you go to these interviews. Be honest. You know that everything is not okay. Stop going on and being like, oh, we're all good in AEW. Everything is all fun. We're having the best time ever. No, the attendance is down. The ratings are down. You're losing money. Don't go out here and pretend like that's not happening. I think people will respect you more if you come out and be honest. Be like, listen, this year has been a very rough year for us, when it comes to everything, but I promise you, going on forward, we're going to have a better time. AEW is going to be back to where it was 5 years ago. If you say stuff like that, at least people will be like, okay, at least he acknowledges that there are certain things wrong with AEW. But he won't even do that. It's like they just act like everything is okay. And then the wrestlers get mad online when people start attacking them on Twitter and stuff. Like, you gotta understand. I don't like the fact that certain people come off on the internet and talk shit about the wrestlers, but some people just give constructive criticism and the wrestlers can't take it. They can't. They hate it. And it's like, they're saying this because they love you. You know what I mean? They love the way you wrestle. They love your company, love all of that. So most of them online who say shit is not because they hate you, it's because they want to see more. But instead, they take it as negativity, and they'll have the wrestlers come out there and go on Twitter and have a whole bitch fit about it, and that is not okay. I truly believe if Tony and the rest of the wrestlers, when they see negative shit online, don't reply to it. Just take it as criticism and work on it. Build upon it. Stop trying to get down to these, wrestling fans' levels. Don't do that. They don't know what it's like to be you. So just focus on building the product that you worked for and you worked hard for, and build it and make it better. Don't try to go online and continuously, bark with fans online. That doesn't make you look professional at all. I truly feel like that's been the biggest issues with AEW. It feels like that's been their whole 2024. Just a whole bunch of negativity and then just yelling back at fans online and stuff. Is like, they're gonna talk shit, you know what I mean? Honestly, if you ask me, I feel like ever since Cody and CMpunk left, I feel like, genuinely speaking, Tony has no idea what he's doing anymore when it comes to creative and holding down AEW. I feel like everything has just fell off a cliff. Nothing makes sense. Like, creative has just completely just went downhill, which brings me to how I think AEW should be better. A, get rid of Will Washington, take him off the creative team and hire somebody like Scott D'Amore, because Scott D'Amore is extremely good at his job, and I think he would kill it in creative, especially what he's done in TNA. And now that he works and he's done Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling, he can work with AEW as well and put MLP a part of Forbidden Door maybe. I think hiring him to do creative would be perfect, because he knows exactly what he wants to do. He knows the vision and knows how the rosters can be built constructively to the point where everybody is interested in what goes on the weekly television on Dynamite and Collision, especially with that women's division. The women's division is way too talented to be at the position that it's in right now. They have way too many talented women in that division. Scott D'Amore can definitely kill it when it comes to creative team for the women's division, and that's what I really want the most. Those women are way too good to be wasted on just BS storytelling that doesn't even exist, and just put them on banger matches. Give them some very interesting stories to tell, because you're just wasting the opportunities that you can with these women. So Scott D'Amore would definitely take this women's division and spin it all the way around and have people fucking begging for another match. And TK needs to release wrestlers that want to be released. For instance, the Lucha Bros. Penta's a free agent. Ray Phoenix was supposed to be a free agent too, and they want to go to WWE since their time as wrestlers are dying down. But, Tony Khan wants to be petty and add on time to Ray Phoenix's contract. And I feel like that's just not right. Let them go. They've done so much for this division. Let them do what they want, especially with Ricky Starks as well. If you have nothing to do with him and Wardlow and other talented wrestlers that you have no like plans to do anything creative with, let them go. Let them do what they want to do. WWE would be perfectly fine with them. Next thing they need to do is do a soft brand split. Put some of the wrestlers on Dynamite and the other half of the roster on Collision. Make Collision more important so people would want to watch Saturday nights. And by doing that is have certain wrestlers on certain shows. That way people can want to watch one certain show because their favorite wrestlers are on that show. Next thing to do, make Ring of Honor fully a developmental company. Like, there's no reason to have Ring of Honor stuff on AEW television. You're wasting TV time by that. Have Ring of Honor be a fully developmental, have people rise up in the ranks from there, and then when they're ready to get called up to AEW, then do that. Put them on Dynamite or Collision. I think that's the best thing to do for Ring of Honor. Make that shit your developmental. When they're ready, call them up. And then if there's people already on the main roster that need some time to develop, send them to Ring of Honor. I think that's the best action to do for Ring of Honor. And also, take Chris Jericho off of Dynamite, please. The learning tree shit, you gotta let that shit go as well. Tony Khan has the opportunity to do all these stuff to fix AEW. I know, this is where the best wrestle. We know you have arguably the best roster ever assembled. But what good is that if you have nothing compelling to make people entertained? So that's what I think AEW needs. Better creative, and everything else will flow from there. What do you guys think? What do you think the biggest problem with AEW? Do you think AEW is gonna die for some reason? Do you still watch AEW? Do you want to care for AEW? Let me know in the comment section below. Once again, this has been NezReacts, and I'll see you in my next video. Love you guys.